After terrorizing Seahawks defenses throughout his 8-year career, Cooper Kupp is finally returning to the state of Washington, this time as a Seahawk. Most Hawks fans seem to love this signing, and I do too, but just for different reasons than most. We're going to get into his fit in this offense and what my projections are for his role, but first let's start with the unique skill set that Cooper Kupp brings to Seattle. We're going to start with this play, which is one of the most impressive plays from Kupp last year. The Rams start in a trips bunch formation to the boundary, and then they motion to a 2x2 formation. The Cardinals are running what Nick Saban calls cover 3 rip. Cover 3 is a 3 deep, 4 underneath coverage, and the rip tag tells everyone that the safety will be rotating down to the defense's right. If the safety was rotating down to the left, then the tag would be Liz. That is what makes this coverage known as Rip Liz. Rip Liz is a man-match coverage, which means despite technically being a zone coverage, it often plays out like man coverage. Let's go through a quick example. If all 4 of these receivers ran vertically, then they would each be played man-to-man. That is a key part of Rip Liz. You will always have a defender to carry each vertical. But if you get a drive route or something underneath, then this starts to look more like zone. The initial defender will pass off the receiver to a hook zone defender and then zone off. So in Rip Liz, it is man coverage on the verticals and anything deeper, but it's zone coverage against the short underneath routes. On this play, none of the Rams go underneath, so this plays out very similarly to man coverage with 1 free safety and 2 underneath zone defenders. The Rams here are going to attack over the middle of the field with Kupp's slant route. In front of him, they have a tight end working on this clear out route to manufacture the space that Kupp needs to work. Kupp begins the play by slow rolling into his route. The goal here is to let the tight end get up the field so that Kupp can play off of him. The beginning of this route is stemming slightly towards the outside, and that is absolutely intentional. This forces the defender to make a decision. With the tight end coming up the field right now, he has to decide if he's going to jump outside of the tight end or stay on the inside. Since it looks like Kupp is running towards the outside with the start of his stem, the corner decides to jump outside of the tight end, and that is all that it takes for Cooper Kupp to win on this route. The timing here is simply impeccable. Exactly when the defender is behind the tight end and Cooper Kupp has some momentary cover, that is when he makes his move. He now changes his route, breaks towards the inside, and keeps all of the speed throughout his entire break. Then he elevates and makes the grab for the catch. He finishes the play by showing his skills with the ball in his hands. His experience and toughness show up, and he takes a great angle to maximize the yards after the catch. This is how Cooper Kupp wins, and it's what makes him special. He's not fast by any means, he's never been, and certainly he's not fast at this point in his career. And he's not even really a particularly quick or sudden receiver. That would seem to be a deal breaker at this position, but Kupp makes it work because he's an absolute technician. He wins with nuance, timing, and experience. Here's another play that shows that nuance. The Rams here are running a Shanahan staple that we'll see a lot of next year in Seattle. This is a play action flood concept. Off of a hard play action fake on outside zone, this concept has 1 player in the flat, 1 player on an intermediate crossing route, and 1 player deep. Who you have running these routes and where they come from varies wildly, and I think the way that the Rams run it here is interesting. In the flat, the Rams have their tight end faking like he's blocking on this outside zone concept and then turning to get back to occupy the flat. The intermediate threat comes from the backside on this crossing route. But the interesting wrinkle here is that instead of a traditional post as the deep threat, the Rams have Cooper Kupp running an 18-yard comeback route. And this is one of the best comeback routes that you'll see, particularly from a slower receiver. Typically, the way that these routes work is you try to scare your corner with the speed that you have and then break off the route. Here against the Lions, we can see DK running an out route with a similar idea. The corner is understandably terrified, so when DK slams on the brakes, there's just so much space and the corner stands no chance. Well, Cooper Kupp runs his route very differently. He's running as fast as he can for the entirety of the route, but that's not going to force the corner to back off. At the top of the route, the corner is literally right next to Cooper Kupp, but it's the deceleration that makes this route special. From this moment, Cooper Kupp will turn around in about 2 yards while it takes the corner about 7 to be able to finally break on this route. That is the difference. It's an almost instantaneous stop from Cooper Kupp, and that is what creates way more separation than any player with his limited athletic profile should be able to create. And again, this is not really an athletic tool, it is a skill. It is the timing of when he drops his hips and throttles all the way down. That is what is remarkable on this play. As a receiver, Cooper Kupp is not a good athlete, but he has the nuance and the experience to make up for it. Before we move on to how Cooper Kupp fits into Kubiak's offense, we do need to talk about his blocking. Kupp has always been one of the best run-blocking receivers in the NFL. Here against the Lions, Kupp basically acts like a tight end. From his slot alignment, he comes down to help seal the edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson, and then he gets up to block the corner. These are things that you shouldn't be able to ask your receivers to do, and I think that dominant run blocking is a huge part of Cooper Kupp's game. We'll get back to the tape in just a second, but I did want to let you all know that my Seahawks 3-round mock draft recently dropped over on the Patreon. That mock draft includes not only the players that I would take, but mini film breakdowns of their strengths, weaknesses, and their fit in this offense. Go check out that and tons of other draft content over on the Patreon. I appreciate your support, and let's get back to the film. The first big reaction that it felt like everyone had was questioning if Cooper Kupp was a good fit in Seattle. JSN is truly an elite slot receiver, so bringing in another slot player does seem to be confusing. And I'm not going to disagree that JSN and Cooper Kupp are both slot receivers. Yes, they can both step out, beat press, and attack vertically, but both of them do their best damage from the slot. I agree that they have similar roles. But I disagree with the notion that these players having similar roles is a problem. Slot receivers want two things. They want a free release and they want to operate over the middle of the field. To me, that is what defines the slot. When you look at all the condensed formations that these Shanahan systems base their offenses around, most of the time these conditions are satisfied. The slot receivers are close to the middle of the field, and that makes them difficult to press as they have so much space on both sides. If you pick any Shanahan system, their players get a ton of free releases and work over the middle of the field often. To me, Cooper Kupp and JSN are slot receivers and route runner types, but that is really what these Shanahan systems want. They don't really feature these big outside receivers who will win contested catches down the sideline. When you think about any Shanahan system, most often they're made of these slot or route runner types, and they're seldom featuring anyone resembling DK Metcalf. So I have no concerns about having two slot receivers. This system wants two slot receivers with the skill sets of JSN and Cooper Kupp. And I do think that when you zoom out, this move also makes a ton of sense. I firmly believe that the Seahawks are going to have an elite defense in 2025. They ranked 12th last year in points allowed, despite being in the first year of this new scheme and having all the turnover at linebacker. This is where things should really start coming together, and this young defense should be among the league's best. So when thinking about an offense that would best complement an elite defense, you want to focus on controlling the football. The Seahawks ranked 28th in time of possession last year. Bringing in Kubiak, who's going to commit to the ground game, and bringing in Cooper Kupp are both moves to improve your ability to control the ball. I'm not saying that this offense won't be explosive. I think that JSN and MVS can both be dynamic receivers, but they're going to be focused on a more consistent attack with Njigba and Cooper Kupp. That makes a ton of sense. Big picture for what this team needs. Right before recording this episode, the contract details for Cooper Kupp dropped, and they show a very balanced contract. Let's go through these details quickly, and I can show you the proper way to evaluate contracts like this. What you need to do is look at this contract as a series of one-year deals. How much will the Seahawks pay in APY if they keep Cooper Kupp for 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years? If the Seahawks cut Cooper Kupp after the first year of his deal, then he'll be paid $17.5 million, with $9.5 million coming in a cap hit in 2025 and $8 million coming in dead money in 2026. So total 1 year, $17.5 million. If the Seahawks cut him after the second year of the deal, then we add up the cap hits in 2025 and 2026, plus the dead money in 2027. That gives us a 2-year deal worth a total of $31 million or $15.5 million per year. Finally, if the Seahawks keep Cooper Kupp for all 3 years, then of course he would get $45 million, and that breaks down to $15 million per year. So this contract is pretty balanced. No matter if the Seahawks cut Cooper Kupp after his first season, after his second season, or keep him for the entire deal, he'll get about $15 million per year. A lot of Hawks fans were hoping there would be some fake money in this. I'm here to tell you that there isn't, but the contract is pretty flexible and the Seahawks aren't ever really going to be locked into anything. I will say I'm not certain that the production that Cooper Kupp is going to have will seem to justify his compensation. $15 million per year is generally good wide receiver 2 money, and you would hope for those guys to get at least 700 or 800 yards throughout the season. Cooper Kupp has put up numbers in that range over the past 3 years, but he's injury prone, and for an NFL wide receiver, he's getting old. I do think that there's a decent chance that Cooper Kupp's production in 2025 will disappoint many Hawks fans, but I won't be disappointed. To me, you're looking for Cooper Kupp to be a solid number 2 for sure, but I think that he offers just so much more than the raw stats that he's going to put up. Cooper Kupp is going to be an impact for this ground attack, and that is valuable as well, but it's really what he does as a leader. The Seahawks need a leader on the offensive side of the ball with DK and Geno leaving. Those were their veteran leaders on this side of the ball, and bringing in Cooper Kupp is huge for that leadership role. And beyond that, I think this signing is huge for JSN. If you're looking for him to take the next step, Cooper Kupp is literally the best guy to learn from. If JSN can just pick up a fraction of all of the nuance and experience that Cooper Kupp has, then this signing will have been worth it. Maybe Kupp is going to have a resurgent year. Again, I'm not ruling that out, but I don't know how important that really is. This is a great signing, not only because Cooper Kupp is a good player, but he's a great leader and a great mentor. That is what makes this signing one of my favorites of this offseason. Thanks for watching, and go Hawks.